You've probably had a question that you have thought about throughout your entire life, whether it be like, where am I going in life? What am I going to do with the rest of my life? That is a philosophical question, regardless if you're just wanting to know what kind of job you're going to do or whatever. It's still a philosophical question.
I'd say life is a choose your own adventure book. And what philosophy does is it does that thing where you say, you know, you can go to page 20 if this happens, or go to page 80 if this happens. And on page 80, it just says you die. You know, you're playing those games and you just skip that bit and you don't go to page 80, you decide to go to page 20 after all. That's what philosophy can do for you.
One key trait about philosophy is that there's like unresolved arguments all the time that never can come to a consensus or agreement. It's always disagreements constantly, but that's actually part of a trick that's actually really good.
A little bit of philosophy makes you Deepak Chopra. Studying philosophy makes you an alcoholic.
Yeah.
But the question here, Dave, is, you know, what do you mean by a little?
I cannot believe that I allowed that Kermit the Frog ass Jordan Peterson joke at the beginning of every one of these episodes. It's the thing we begin on, it's the thing we end on, and I have depression. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Living with Philosophy, whether you like it or not. I've got Barry, I've got Opie, we've got Dave with us, I'm Chesh, and Frustrated Russ is not with us today. He had a school obligation. Learning things is important. Advancing your education is important. Something. We've been abandoned.
We know where his priorities are now.
Yeah, we've been abandoned. We get what it's like. We get how it is. But how is everybody? How you doing? Let's start with Dave, then go to Barry, and then go to Avi. I remember Dave was like last month. We do the show every Saturday. Sorry, the first Saturday of every month. So last Saturday, you weren't feeling so great. Feeling better now?
Yeah, no, I wasn't feeling well. This week I'm sort of shattered because I had 3 assignments that I had to hand in this week.
Oh, God.
See, unlike Frustrated Atheist, I can do the schoolwork and still show up.
Absolutely murder spagurtered. How are you, Barry?
Me? Oh, I'm fine. You made a terrible mistake with this particular podcast because my whole approach to this thing was I was going to come at it like extempore. But then you told us in advance, oh, you got to pick one of these things, right? Mm-hmm. Pick one of these logical laws, you said, and have a talk about it. So now I'm after none of which, by the way, are logical laws, but we can get into that later. No. And I've prepared something, and this is all on you. I'm going to read it out, and I don't care whenever my time comes.
Barry's out for revenge. How are you?
Fuck all up.
I'm good. I have an exam on Monday, so I should be studying, but here I am. Being a good sport.
So, like Dave, we know where your priorities are. We know where Dave's priorities are. The management work. Barry did a whole assignment, and yet here we are. What are you doing, man? That's okay. He actually made my life easier.
Guys, I have literally nothing going on, so
now I can do this.
Oh Jesus, that thing. Okay,
right,
look.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
I feel like that grid. We're just gonna riff like a lot about it, like.
Oh, yeah.
So it's fine.
Oh yeah.
Riff.
I prepared nothing.
No,
I'm just
this is structured. What do you mean riff?
Barry, do you want to go first?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm going to need total silence from everybody while I read this out. Okay.
All right.
If you have any questions, just hold on to them till just hold on till the end, okay? Now, I was given Chekhov's gun. Again, it's not a logical law, but let's just talk about it. It has a philosophical value of 0. But let's just talk about it and see what happens, right? You ready?
Oh, I could figure out some philosophical things for it, so I'll
if you'd written this, then that would be relevant, yeah.
Okay. How dare you interrupt, Barry?
Yeah. Okay. Hold your questions to the end, yeah? Thanks. So here we go. A lot of this stuff, if you're a fan of the podcast, you'll have heard some of this before, but I don't give a shit. Your brain, okay, has evolved into an amazing pattern recognition machine. It is very good at taking data and turning it into information using pattern recognition. It does this with sound and vision and also your thoughts. Your brain is devoting so much time to pattern recognition that sometimes it invents patterns that aren't really there. And you can prove this fairly easily by looking at literally any optical illusion. Okay, Hamlet in that play said, do you see yonder cloud that's almost in shape of a camel? And Polonius, who appears to have been beamed in from a different play completely, says, by the mass, and 'tis like a camel indeed. And then Hamlet says, methinks it is like a weasel. Now, Hamlet is aware that there is not a giant wispy camel or weasel in the sky, but he can see that it looks that way, and the same is true of the patterns created rather than identified in our thoughts. In other words, being fully aware that your pattern recognition machine is misfiring does not prevent it from misfiring. The good news is that we can harness this machine to help us in many ways, and this is how poetry and music kicked off, because poetry and music are based on some fairly basic and repeating patterns, and it makes things easy to remember. The Iliad is over 15,000 lines, which had to be memorized by people who were illiterate, meaning they couldn't check their progress with the text at any point. Man, that thing better rhyme or have repetitious bits somewhere in it or all the way through. A more complicated thing we do is narrative, which means... I'm getting to it, don't worry. A more complicated thing we do is narrative, which means telling a story. We constantly tell each other's story all the time using all the narrative devices. And perhaps the most common narrative device we use to tell each other stories is the metaphor. And metaphor just means referring to something in terms of something else, in the hopes of moving closer to an understanding. For instance, in that last sentence, I said moving closer to an understanding, when in fact there will be no literal movement. This sort of narrative device is so embedded in our most basic communication that you might not even have noticed it was happening just there, which is fine. Good. And another narrative device is Chekhov's gun, which was developed by Russian playwright and short story writer Anton Chekhov. Very simply, it says that if you see a gun in Act 1, then you better be shooting somebody in Act 3. For one thing, when you're putting on a play, everything costs money, and you don't want to waste anyone's time or resources putting extraneous business in there. And the secondary issue is, why have a gun at all if you're not going to use it, right? What's the point? Unless you're running up some Agatha Christie bullshit where it's important to lead your audience to the incorrect conclusion, you want to respect your audience. Now, the problems arise when we apply what we've learned from decades of constantly telling each other's stories, decades of television and movies and books and plays, and we try to apply it to real life. Something inside us expects good people to be rewarded and bad people to be punished, and something inside of us tells us that only a certain kind of person will end up addicted to drugs or kill themselves. This is what happens when you prioritize narratives over reality. Mark Twain once said, the difference between fact and fiction is that fiction has to make sense. Right, we're halfway through. Real life has no narrative. In real life, it would be perfectly possible to see a gun at the start of the evening and have no one shoot anyone by the end of the evening. In real life, things just sort of happen for no discernible reason all the time. Not for no reason, but for no discernible reason all the time. Narrative only happens in your mind, and it is powerful, and we all succumb to it all the time. It is not something that only happens to other people. You cannot avoid it because it's how your brain works. We are all constantly trying to find patterns in the mess of stuff of everything. And if there isn't a pattern, then by Jesus, I will make one. All you can do is be aware of it and hope for the best. Do not confuse the map for the territory. What's going on in the chat? Calm down. Do not confuse the map for the territory. We have lots of maps, ways to model the world, our reality, but we have no access to reality. And maybe we use some of the maps to get a better idea of what the territory might look like. Maybe, I don't know, and you don't either. All we have are the maps. This is what the postmodernists were trying to get at, that there is no objective reality, and it might not even be coherent to imagine reality in terms of whether or not it's objective, for all sorts of reasons. But we have no access to reality, we only have the maps. And again, the fact that all we have are the maps should not confuse you about what the maps are. The mistake Socrates made wasn't going the whole wrong way on that. He thought there must be some base reality somewhere, but all we see are the shadows. But what if there is no base reality anywhere, and all of us has is just the way we look at it? A bee will look at a flower and see something completely different to what I see. Not just because of the different visual systems, but of the different cognitive processes, the different context, and the different operating assumptions. So is one of us wrong? Is one of us closer to seeing the real flower? Are those two questions nonsensical? If we accept that bees see whatever they need to see to do bee stuff, then maybe I see whatever I need to see to do my human stuff. Why not? Some maps are trying to more accurately map the territory, like science or physics, but they are still maps, modeling systems. Now, I'm not saying that they're wrong. And if you've ever been on the London Underground, you will realize that maps can be indispensable. In fact, wrong might be a bad way to think about any of this. I can show you a very good map of my town, Clonmel in Ireland. It is in no way wrong, but only an idiot would think it's a town. It's a piece of paper about 1 foot square. How could it be my town? But this is a very common philosophical mistake about how we think, all of us, me, by the way, too, all the time. All you can do is be aware of it and hope for the best. Chekhov's gun. Thanks. We're done.
Good job,
Thank you.
Barry.
No, that was actually really well done, actually. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to watch it again.
It was, yeah.
Oh, that was well done.
Yeah, good
You know what?
job.
Any questions?
In all seriousness, like there's a lot of great things we can pick apart on.
Okay.
That's really good.
Do you want to go ahead and pick apart on?
Yeah, some things. So like I know like partly about Chekhov's gun is like the intentionalness of placing every object in that play is important, not just for like economic reasons, but like you can apply it to yourself as like, everything that you're doing, you should be more intentional with specifically, That's an important like living with philosophy thing that we can add to that. Is that why put a gun in the scene? Why place your toothbrush in the cup holder next to your sink, or on your sink if you're not intending to organize your living space.
I like the why make your bed if you're just gonna lay in it again later and it's gonna get wrecked again. So like, why do you bother? It's one of those things where it's like, I think there's a lot we can take away from patterns, like Barry was saying, and I think they're to human behavior and human expectations and like a subversion of those expectations in some cases, like with, for example, Agatha Christie, or with. And what you can learn from a philosophical standpoint about either what people were thinking at the time or also just from literary devices in general.
Dave, do you have anything for Chekhov's gun?
No, not really. It's actually the one thing I had to look up today.
Oh.
Because I never actually... I know of the idea, but I never knew what it was called or didn't really know very much about it.
I did pull
I had
up
a
all
feeling
the...
Barry might take that one, though.
I did pull up all
How
of
to
the...
violently shoehorn it into a philosophical concept. You also know about that.
Yeah, it's
I think,
violent because it's a gun.
A cool, and it doesn't have to be a gun. It could be the top in Inception. It could be a knife in Knives
anything
Out.
at all.
It could be, yes.
Yeah.
It could be the
MacGuffin.
bloodstained shoe. Yeah.
Yeah.
The sled in Citizen Kane. So.
Well, no, that's a MacGuffin. That's not Chekhov's gun. Chekhov's gun is just anything at all that looks like it does something in Act 1. And then, like, why would it be in the scene unless it's in Act 3?
It's in the end.
MacGuffin is something...
It is in the Act 3.
A MacGuffin...
Yeah,
It's
but a
burning in
MacGuffin is
Act
like
3.
a thing that plot revolves around, and it doesn't really matter what it is, like the Maltese Falcon.
And there are, in some
fair
very
enough, yeah.
bad examples, there are MacGuffins that are there that are supposed to do something and then never do.
They're misfiring MacGuffins.
Yeah.
Like the briefcase in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
No, that counts as a genuine MacGuffin.
Yeah.
It does do its
Because the
job.
plot revolves around it.
Yeah, it does do its job. There's lots of things that you can kind of like take away and pick apart. But before we do that, did anybody pick Schrodinger's? No,
I mean,
I didn't pick anything because I just
Maybe
figured I
Hazel
would
did.
go with whatever was left.
I just don't remember what Frustrated had picked because he's not here. So I was just going to do that one.
he chose Razor, but I can take on that too.
Do you want
specifically,
Razor?
so.
Okay, then you go ahead and go next.
We can transition from the maps and the territory of Chekhov's gun into Razor stuff specifically.
Yes!
Like when it comes to it's perfect transition for this. So like Occam's razor is in philosophy, a razor is something that you've used as a heuristic to cleave and shave off choices in your patterns. Like what is a good map versus a bad map, So like in science, it's not even though I'm lean more on the realist side, I do afford to Barry that like there is no actual, direct attachment to reality. We have these maps, these models that we have. And what makes a good model is something that's accurate and precise. It doesn't mean it's actually touching reality, but like it's working, accurately, like a map in the underground London and stuff like that, that is not a super accurate one, but
Well, instead of saying accurate, say it produces useful results.
yeah, exactly. And then another line is accountability. Can you self-correct these models over time as new information shows up? Because that's important for our scientific models. Another one is coherence. Like part of our pattern recognition brain is it needs to cohere in some way. And that's part of what's important for us to make sure that there's no contradictions within that model we're making. But the final one is efficiency, and that's partly Occam's razor. So part of it's the law of parsimony, part of it's consilience. So it can't just be simple in terms of like eliminating them down to the barest amount of entities or suppositions of your model, but you also need those models to support each other. It can't be in isolation. Like if having one belief, and this doesn't actually happen in humans, we don't have isolated beliefs. They all have something to do with each other in some way. So.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good description of Occam's razor. I mean, the super simple one is just like the most straightforward answer is the Like,
think
don't
literally
add extra things when you don't need to. And Chekhov's gun,
think-
if you're using it inappropriately, would be an extra thing that you don't need to add. You're not going to use it.
Sometimes Occam's razor is wrong.
Yes.
Yes.
Sometimes
Yeah.
something has a ridiculously and unnecessarily complicated but true explanation.
Oh, absolutely. Politics.
And sometimes I guess
Oh,
Chekhov's gun is wrong too.
when
Sometimes
you-
they see a gun and see one and that's it.
Yep.
It's the only one that like is more of a heuristic rather than a rule to follow.
heuristic, yeah.
specific. Yeah. The
That's
other three
good, yeah.
that we're going to be talking about are more rules based. You know,
Pragmatic.
they're not heuristics.
Yeah, it's
Um,
about efficiency and, like you mentioned, and pragmatism of being like, sometimes you just got to cut the fat and be like, and get to the core of the issue rather than burying yourself in a bunch of additional information that may not actually be helping you solve the problem.
It's part of why some people stop believing in a god, because they're like, well,
Mhm.
I feel like I can get from this to this without having a god in the middle.
Which, by the way,
You know?
doesn't mean it's right. It's not a be-all, end-all.
No, that doesn't mean it's right. It just means that's a contributing factor, I believe, because I've heard people say that to me about why they stop believing in a god. Whether or not, like, that's true, I have no idea if there's a god or not. Just intend to act, live, and believe and behave as if there wasn't.
Dave, what do you think?
It's about theory choice.
Find out someday, maybe.
It helps with underdetermination between if we have two competing maps or models, like the one that seems to not require as much effort to think about is probably the easier one for us to use. So
The path less traveled. Like, why am I going to take
Yeah.
all these extra steps in my life when there seems to be no real difference?
You mean if there's nothing to recommend either of them up to that point?
yeah, no, as in like if you've got both of them accurate, you got both of them coherent, you got both of them able to be accountable, then your last resort is this parsimony.
Like the London Underground map is amazing. It's amazing because they've literally cut everything out you don't need.
Mhm.
You cannot use that
Same
map
with-
to walk around London. You cannot use that map to find out how far away Tottenham Court Road is from Oxford
Yeah.
Circus because the distances on the map do not relate. They don't scale to the distances in real life. They're just it's all about where's your next stop, where's this train going, where do you switch, and nothing else. It's brilliant.
It's crazy.
If you're in America, your choices are either the CTA at Chicago or the Boston one. Like I think New York is a cacophony of bullshit. But
Imagine having subways
no.
and trains.
Yeah, and so is their subway system.
What? New York, yeah. No, that's why I'm recommending Chicago or Boston for your maps.
No, New York. Get out of here.
Yoik, New York,
New York.
Boston,
All
the
right, so
T
that
in Boston.
the T. That's the whole river is still steeped to this day. So the last two we have are Schrodinger's and Murphy's. Opie, did you have one of these ones chosen?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, like with Schrodinger's cat, it's just a simple like superposition. I'm saying simple, but yeah, it's not even his idea. Like somebody else put it onto him afterwards, and it's
Someone
just
else
about
said it
putting
off him to make fun of him and said, you don't actually think this is the way it is. And he said, yeah, that's actually a very good example of what I'm talking about.
But then he also hated it
Quantum
and left.
superpositions.
Well, he did hate it because it's an allegory rather than a law. You're trying to explain something that's impossible for us to understand using normal brain work, so you don't have much choice. Cat in a box, is it dead or alive? It's both dead and alive at the same time. Enjoy.
Yeah, that's basically Schrodinger's cat.
Equal probability of it until something observes it. Yeah, which like your computers, what you're watching right now relies on this. So it has some function, regardless if we can comprehend it or not. So,
Dave, do you want to
But
give
it
us
was cooked up originally to make fun of him.
Do you want to give us a brief explanation?
I mean, it can kind of be a law of logic. It sort of helps with fuzzy logic. They basically explained it. Schrodinger's cat is the idea that we have a cat in a box. Isn't there like a little capsule of poisonous gas or something that's supposed to be released? And the cat in the box could be dead or alive. You don't know until you actually open the box. So at the time, it's both dead and alive.
not
But theoretically, it's not. But you could also just say like something like fuzzy logic, where it's neither dead nor alive. It's just unknown. Schrodinger's cat is basically quite simple when it boils down to it.
I think it's one of those things that's
Um,
it's really simple on the surface, but when you start getting into like what that means, it starts to get
The deeper
fuzzy
meaning.
and
Yeah.
complicated. Because like, okay, so what does it mean to be alive and dead at the same time, and how do you parse? Because they seem to be contradicting positions. You can't believe the cat is both alive and dead at the same time. So, but clearly that's the position we're in. So how does that? How do you parse that as like from a belief standpoint? And it's just like, well, because we
Basically,
don't
it's
know.
neither. It's unknown.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
because I
just
don't know.
unknown.
Yeah.
It's a probability.
How does
Yeah.
yeah. So how does like true and false work in fuzzy logic then?
It can be true, false, or unknown. So we don't have enough information to make it true or to make it false. So it's just something that's unknown. God in
It's
fuzzy logic could be
superposition.
said to be, superpositioned.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I know we don't like to use terminology here, so.
Quantum superpositions.
We're not trying to be
Which again
Deepak
are not
Chopra.
really, they're not really a philosophical concept.
Yeah,
They're more
exactly.
a concept of physics.
It's
Yes.
it's a quantum physics idea, but it can be used in something like epistemology to get people to think about how we come to conclusions, I guess.
Some of the best physicists are philosophers of science in physics and math, so it's really interesting. So
Yeah, it's one of those things where you start. It's one of those areas. Schrodinger's cat is very much one of those areas where philosophy and thought processes and philosophy and processes and physics start to get like in the place where we're like we don't know enough about this, so we can't delineate what category we're gonna put this thing in. And like that happens all the time because like I've said before, or like at least like I've argued, now you don't have to agree with me, is that all these things are already the same thing and we just categorize them for our own sake to make it easier for us to understand and educate ourselves and educate each other. But those boxes aren't real. They're just metaphorical boxes and categories to make our lives, and like Barry was saying about pattern recognition with Chekhov's gun, just to make it easier for us to understand. Because why would we talk about X when we're trying to talk about Y? Now, X and Y are actually the same thing in a broader sense, but if we get too bogged down, it gets overwhelming. So we categorize things in a way that makes it easier for our tiny little pea-brain human monkeys to understand.
Why talk about everything that is like a dark color when we're actually trying to talk about ravens or crows right now? Like it's not useful to be talking about a cue ball or like a billiard ball right now. So
right, exactly. So the next one is Murphy's Law, which I'll take. Murphy's Law is not so much as like an actual law. It's mostly just a turn of phrase. And it is a turn of phrase that basically means if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. So it's more of like just being unlucky. It's more like just the the way you live your life. It's the hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Like if make sure you take an umbrella out if you think it might rain. It's that kind of like an adage. And it's a pretty straightforward one, but it gets really, really funny when we start doing these things, when we start combining them.
yeah,
Which is the real purpose of why we're here today. So this
I
is a
love
grid.
this grid made me laugh. I want to shout out Athens because Athens is the one that sent me this in Discord, and I was like, "This is amazing."
No, so my favorite is where is it? Occam's Law. Everything that can be explained will be explained. It's the funniest shit ever. Like
yeah, so it's Chekhov's gun. So it goes Checkov, Schrodinger, Occam's Murphy, gun, cat, razor law. So at Murphy's Law, it says anything that can go wrong will go wrong, right? So that's the one that's like the one that everybody knows. And so Occam and razor is that the not even here it is. Yeah, it's the diagonally up one from the bottom right corner. The simplest explanation is probably the correct one. Now, these idiom, like the way these are written out, are very simplified, and they're not going to get you the whole concept, but like the idea is there. So, all right, you told us your favorite. Yeah. Go on.
No, but also I'll add like it's not perfectly accurate on Occam's razor. If you actually look at William of Occam's writing, it's like it's like minimizing entities. That's it. Like it was
Yeah.
something about like minimizing entities.
Yeah,
But this
I
is also
think-
like from 14th century. So
Yeah, I would probably say it's actually a little bit much to say that that's the simplest explanation is probably the correct one. I don't think that's
Yeah.
quite what Occam was getting at. I think what Occam was getting at was the simple you should aim to try to distill your information down when you are trying to figure something out. Like don't add in extra shit. Stop putting garbage in stop putting shavings of carrots in my stew. I don't need them.
They add a nice bit of crunch and sweetness, though.
I do like carrots, but I don't need the shaving part.
No.
Crunch and sweetness.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite one in here, Barry?
Yeah, Schrodinger's gun. You can't know if a gun is loaded or not until the trigger is pulled. Man, sometimes you gotta just pull that trigger and don't worry about it. Do you want to know how badly do you know to know if that gun is loaded?
No.
How important
So,
is it to
yeah.
you?
You should
I love
always
that.
treat
Just pull the
when
trigger.
any gun is loaded. So
Yeah, that's exactly right. You're never gonna know until
Yeah.
it's pulled.
Just
No,
do
you
it. It's
should
fine.
really
You'll be
treat-
fine. Don't worry.
no, you should really treat a gun. Every gun is loaded. Every
Yeah.
single one.
Well, I was going for metaphor, but yeah, sure. In literal terms, just stay away from them in general. But like in
Both.
metaphorical terms, just pull that trigger, man, all day long. Don't give a fuck.
Dave, did you have a favorite one in these?
Yeah, anything that can be simple will be simple, mostly because it describes me.
Murphy's razor. All right, so actually, let's go through these for the audience. So we've got Chekhov's gun. Right? If a gun is introduced in the first act, it must be fired by the third. Or what Barry said, which was way more eloquent. Chekhov's cat. If a box is introduced in the first act, a cat must sit in it by the third.
Oh,
Chekhov's razor. The simplest way to fire a gun is to pull the trigger. Chekhov's law. Every gun in a play will be fired. Schrodinger's gun. You can't know if a gun is loaded or not until the trigger is pulled. Schrodinger's cat. An unopened box may contain a dead cat or an alive cat, and you won't know until you open it. Schrodinger's razor. An unopened box may contain the solution to your problems. I think that one's a good one. Schrodinger's law. You can't know things that go wrong until they do. Occam's gun is the simplest way to kill off a character is to shoot them. Occam's cat. If you hear a strange noise at night, it's probably a cat.
That's
Occam's
true.
right.
That's true.
Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is probably the correct one. Occam's law. If everything that can be explained will be explained. Murphy's gun. Any gun that can go off will go off. That's more of what Oppie was saying about like treat every gun like it's loaded. Murphy's cat. Any box that can contain a cat will contain a cat. I think that one might be my favorite. Murphy's
adorable.
razor. Anything that can be simple will be simple. And Murphy's law is anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Let us know
Some
what
of
your
these just
favorite
don't
one
work.
was. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. Some of these just don't work like at all.
No, that's what makes them fun. Which one do you think doesn't
know.
work?
Well, that the anything that can be simple will be simple. Like no, there's things that we overcomplicate all the fucking time. Like
Yeah, but that's us making it that way.
yeah, but then that's not inevitably willing it to be like will be simple. Like it just isn't.
I
at
can
that
simplify
point.
it. It will be simple. Oh yes, it will be simple.
Ominous.
What was another one that doesn't work?
I like that any box that can
Oh,
contain
yeah,
a
this-
cat will contain a cat.
No, that's true. It will. That is though. That not
You
the
put a
simple
box
part, but the
out
cat part.
A cat fits in it. There
My
will
cat
be
doesn't
a
like
cat in there.
boxes.
Your cat doesn't like boxes.
Oh,
No,
you don't have
my
a
cat
cat.
does not like boxes. Oh, whatever that thing is.
Yep,
She
it's not
doesn't
a
like
cat.
boxes. She won't because I
It's a
tried it. I tried.
homunculus. It's
Yeah,
a
I tried putting
changeling.
boxes down. She won't go into them.
Fairy. Actually, a goblin.
She prefers open space.
No, I think the simplest way to kill a character off is just to evaporate it out of existence.
Just
like
not write about it anymore.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
just gone. Never mentioned or heard from again. The simplest
If
way to
there's
kill
like
off
a-
a character, yeah. They do make it a character, right? Not like a person. Although I do like the concept of like a world and a story that has like There is no Chekhov's gun. There's no gun that's been around. In fact, no gun has ever been mentioned in this story whatsoever, and the writer is just done with his character, so just one person pulls out a gun, shoots them, done. That
think-
sounds like something that would come from Discworld to me.
The early on in the Next Generation, that
Hitchhikers.
one lady that was just she was killed off like really quickly.
Tasha Yar.
I think it was,
Oh, Tasha,
yeah. That was like what? Like
With like no ceremony, no, just disappears into some goo.
She came
What-
back though as a Romulan.
I think they brought her back for something else too, like way later down.
She asked to leave the show. The actress wanted to leave the show because she thought she didn't see it going anywhere. And if season 1 was all we had to go on, fair enough.
Yeah, there was actually
Yeah.
there was a couple reasons. Yeah, that was one of them.
Oh, there were some episodes in that thing that were genuinely problematic as well as badly written.
Yeah.
But they picked up. It got better.
Well, Patrick Stewart was going to leave too, and then they did this. They convinced him to stay for the second season, and then it
I
took
think
off.
the most optimistic one on this grid is you can't know that things will go wrong until they do.
I mean,
that's actually really adorable.
That's
you know?
cute, and I think that's very true. You don't know that things are gonna go wrong. You should still maybe prepare for things to go wrong in case that they do, but you don't know it's gonna go wrong, so you should just do it. Just try it.
Maybe
Pull the
everything
trigger.
will go right.
Pull the
Yeah,
trigger.
no,
It's not
I
gonna go
know
wrong.
things are going to go wrong.
No, you believe.
No, I know. Inductively, I know.
I like the simplest way to fire a gun is to pull the trigger. I like that one because it makes me think of like how people overthink things so much, where they're just like, "Oh, I'm gonna fiddle with this. I'm gonna futz with this." I'm like, or you could just do it.
Do it. Yeah.
Just do it. Like, just pull the trigger. Just go. Like, I don't like people on YouTube in particular will be like, "Well, I don't know if I should start a channel. I don't know if I should do this. I don't just do it." Do it. You
mean,
can't tell the
pulling the
internet what's not gonna like.
No, that's actually a really
Pulling
good.
the trigger doesn't guarantee the gun's going to go off.
That's true.
Probability-wise, yeah.
Yeah.
So Murphy's gun
No.
would be pulling the trigger doesn't mean it'll go off.
Yeah, it's just the simplest way to fire a gun. The other one
Like
is...
that guy in Hardboiled. You ever see Hardboiled, the movie?
No, I don't think I have.
Yeah.
It's a Chinese movie. He's got this revolver that's got 6 chambers in it, and he fires 17 bullets out of it before it clicks. Fucking
So-
brilliant.
Wait, so Chekhov's razor and Schrodinger's gun like go together? So like the simplest way to fire a gun is to pull the trigger, and you can't know the gun is loaded or not until you pull the trigger.
They're related, yeah.
They go together. They're a double team.
Are they entangled though?
It's Quantum Leap.
Oh no!
They had a
Quantum
super...
entangled. Yeah.
They're both at the same time.
Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. That was terrible.
I like that. I think that's great.
The look on Opie's face made me immediately regret saying that because he was like, "No."
Well,
Okay, but you also have.
I was
ones-
thinking of like Deepak Chopra stuff with it, like how
Oh,
he
no,
just
that's even
uses
worse.
words.
But you also have ones
Yeah.
in here that contradict each other.
Yeah.
So, like Murphy's Law is any gun that can go off will go off.
Hmm.
But does the gun have to be loaded for it to go off? Like what does go off mean? Because like
What does
again,
can mean? No,
Right.
what does can mean?
the simplest way to fire a gun, like does firing a gun mean that the gun has to be loaded, or does it just mean like
Operable.
operable?
Or,
Yeah.
yeah.
It could be just.
Is
getting
it
rid
still
of
a
it
gun
from
if
the
it's
job.
not operable?
Whoa! If it's not loaded, is it a gun?
Are we actually? No, we can trace this back to identity. Like,
Yeah.
are you actually a machinist if you haven't worked in a machine shop for like 60 years? Like stuff like that. Like, are you actually like?
Yeah, are
is
you
it actually a
still-
gun if it's been rusted off for like 1600 years?
Well, I mean, if we're gonna like pick on how we were saying some of these didn't work, right?
Yeah.
Well, what was the one that you
Yeah.
said that didn't work? The you
Simple.
can't know a gun if no. The simplest way to know one of them.
Oh,
you said
anything
you-
that can be simple will be simple.
anything that can be simple will be simple. So if we adjust some of our definitions, so if we're taking issue with the word can, it doesn't mean can doesn't necessarily mean have to be. It just can be, not
Mhm.
is. right? So if we want to get like technical about like, and obviously we're joking around, these aren't serious, and it's more of like
No.
just an exercise in practicing. But like if you take issue with the word any gun that can go off will go off, doesn't mean that every gun is able to go off. So there's a section of guns that are not capable of going off, therefore they will not go off.
Murphy's has to deal with a lot of probability. So like if you take one coin flip, then like Murphy's law doesn't really work out. But if you do 1,000,000 coin flips, eventually you're going to lose the coin flip toss. Like
You should.
on a high
probably.
should on a high probability, but there's still a chance that you don't, and
Mhm.
that still isn't a will. It's like you might
Yes.
go wrong. So
You're gonna talk to me
Man,
about
if you have a
probability
coin,
statistics.
flip a coin 1,000,000 times and it comes heads every time. I am making a phone call to Regis Philbin because he sounds like the kind of guy who knows who I need to talk to about that.
Yeah.
you start questioning if it's a Bayesian like fair coin at that point. You know?
We start wondering if you're in the
Exactly
Matrix.
what I would do. Is this a Bayesian fair coin?
Is the top ever gonna tip over?
Yeah, am I in a dream? Shit! Heads. Fuck this noise. I'm in a dream. I'm in Inception.
Oh, Chekhov's gun, the Chekhov's top.
Yeah,
Chekhov's
yeah,
coin.
that was like, and people took issue with Inception with that ending. People were like, "Are
Murphy's
you
Law is just
serious?"
Schopenhauer for don't get fucked. Does Murphy's Law hate women? Is that what you're trying to say now?
Murphy could be a girl name.
I thought
You
it
don't
was
know.
clever.
It is
Yeah, it
clever,
could
yeah. I just felt like making fun of it. It's perfectly clever, yeah.
What
How
happened?
dare
What
you
happened?
make fun of me?
What
I
about
don't
things
think
going
I'm being
right?
made fun of very well.
Oh, so taking Murphy's Law and flipping it putting in the reverse and saying instead of anything that can go wrong will go wrong, it's anything that can go right will go right.
Like why is
don't
it
sound
always
like
wrong?
Science
instead of-
fiction.
What?
Well, let's just, in my experience of dealing with the National Health Service, it's not that anything that go wrong will go wrong. It's more like everything is a little bit more complicated than it has to be, and everything takes a little longer than it should, right? Let's put it there.
I mean, and that goes along with this the simplest. What is it? The anything that can be simple will be simple.
It's like healthcare should be simple, and it never is. So
Well, we got a lot of bureaucratic systems that are made to
Murphy
benefit the people that are more complicated than a lot of people can navigate, and they don't need to be that complicated. And that's where you get like the confusion of where people get straight up confused and they say, "Oh my God, there's so much waste, fraud, and abuse," and it's like, no, you're just confused. You just don't know how it works. So there might be
usually-
some waste, but wasting my brain cells.
usually places that have higher taxes, let's say like decent parts of like, and like every state has this in the United States. There's like areas that are higher in taxes than lower areas, and generally those places have better schooling, and it pays off in the long run for your like the children in those areas rather than like a lower tax bracket area that like does poorly over time, and it just it feeds into itself.
We got.
Do you want to hear the original? Do you want to hear the original wording of Murphy's Law according to Wikipedia?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, you're gonna like this. It was put together by Edward Murphy, who was an aerospace engineer. So already, yes. His original quote was the precautionary design advice that if there are two or more ways to do something and one of them results in a catastrophe, then someone will do it that way.
That's amazing.
Okay, that's good.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's good.
That is absolutely. So it turns out Murphy's Law is even better.
That's
than-
perfect.
I feel like
It's in the chat there, the link.
that's more like.
I feel like
Go ahead. Sorry.
I feel like he had like manufacturing experience if that was the case, because then he
Oh, yeah, he's an
firsthand would
aerospace
see
engineer.
what the consequence. Well,
Yeah.
not all engineers actually have like on the ground experience. Some of them like
Well,
come up
are you
with.
are you an engineer if you don't?
Okay. All right. We're getting into the definition of what counts as
No.
an engineer.
There are
Me
people
and
that
Obi are getting
come up with.
fucking trauma flashback.
Oh, so like I deal with prints for like products all the time, and like
Oh,
some of them
fantastic! I
are
love that guy.
mathematically-
You are a raspberry.
Like blueprints.
This is a
Like
bit.
blueprints.
Yeah.
And they're like mathematically impossible. Like actually, if you run the trig on it, like it doesn't add to what it needs to be. And I'm like, who made this? And then I go back and like, oh, that was a typo on there. I forgot to put this in there. I'm like, you're an idiot. So like there's engineers that don't understand what's physically possible in the real world.
Yeah.
But then it seems like this aerospace engineer does know that things fuck up all the time.
But sometimes
So.
you if you don't know something's impossible, you find a way to do it.
What?
Orson Welles said that about filmmaking. He said, I never went to filmmaking school, so I didn't know all these things were impossible.
I think that Hawkskull's got a good one here. They said, if anything can go right, it does go right. It's Mary Sue's law.
Okay, yeah.
Well,
No, I see that.
There you go.
So you got a Murphy you got a negative version and a positive version, but that positive version is probably like worse for storytelling.
And the opposite of Schrodinger's law then is if there's a cat in a box, it's at some point it's going to be dead.
So I have a beef. I have a little bit of a beef with this one. I have a little bit of a beef
Okay.
with Schrodinger and Cat being the decision here. Because they use the box a lot. And the box is not actually referenced in the chart. So I would prefer like something like if it's in a box, it's a cat. Right?
What would that be? Which one would that be?
So, like, Chekhov's gun
Oh,
is if a
I
box...
see.
Yeah, or sorry, Chekhov's cat is like if a box is introduced in the first act, a cat must sit in the third. As opposed to,
But
like...
then-
right? Sorry, go ahead.
I see then, so like Occam's should have a box in its explanation, and Murphy's should have a box. Well, Murphy does, but Occam's doesn't. That's the only one that doesn't have a box. in
Yeah,
its
why does
explanation.
Occam's not have a box? It would be like, if you hear a strange sound in a box, it's probably a cat.
There, yeah, no,
That would fix
that
it.
should be the edit.
I
Yeah.
feel
They
like that's
should be-
adding an extra layer you don't need. You can just go straight, if you hear a strange noise, it's probably a cat. I think that's probably the more efficient way
Oh,
to...
so we're
If you
overdoing the Occam's.
if you remove the box, though. But if you remove the box, I
that's-
think you have to remove the box from all of them. Because
But that's what Occam wants you to do, is remove those externalities that don't need it. So
Exactly. So, like, you would say, instead of, if a box is introduced in the first act, a cat must sit in it by the third, you would say, if a cat is introduced in the first act, it must sit in a box by the third.
Where did the box come from?
That's what I mean. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Like, a cat can just walk onto the stage and sit in a box. What's a box going to do if the cat's introduced in the first act? The box is just going to shimmy on stage to act 3 on a piece of string off.
The box is just attached to the cat.
I would love it.
Get in the box! Get in the box, you little shit! Felix, get in the... We did this in rehearsals! Get in the fucking... Well, in rehearsals, you had food in the box. Shit!
We didn't have the budget for that.
Meow, 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 meow.
But the cats are in all open boxes, not the unopened boxes. That's another problem. Right?
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is that you
Yeah,
need to
can you see
either adjust the title at the top and it needs to say cat/box.
My cat.
Oh. Little nibbles.
Jumps into the bed with me in the
Well-
nighttime and scrapes the shit out of my hand and my arm.
I guess there's
It's
some
box.
similarities. So like
Box is the MacGuffin.
an
Okay, then it's on
unopened
stage
box
at all
is-
times. Fair enough.
Sorry,
An
go ahead.
unopened box is also like synonymous with you can't know
Chocolate.
what's inside it. So that's why
Yeah.
the gun and the law are you can't know that, or you can't know if.
Right.
All right. Any play at all, just put a box on stage for the entire play, and then when everybody's finally left stage or everybody's dead at the end of Hamlet, then the cat just pops out at the very last after everything's
No, not
finished
e-
and just...
Even better, not even that. When they stand back on stage in a row to bow,
Bow.
Yeah.
then it's
Then the cat
after
pops
the
out and gives a little
actor
bow.
Dave, what do
Okay.
you
in a
think?
box.
And Wiggins as himself. Yes.
I don't know. I find all these kind of clever. I kind of
Mhm.
like the box
Hmm.
idea rather than the cat idea.
So then I would say you should change it to Schrodinger's box instead of Schrodinger's cat.
Occam's box.
Yeah, but maybe
that
the
box
guy
is too
hated
damn big.
animals.
Now,
There.
why is it that?
I mean, it would explain a hatred for cats would explain the actual thought experiment.
Oh, here's the
Or
one
hatred
that
of
is
boxes.
actually inconsistent. Is Schrodinger's
Here we go.
razor. At no point does it have
Okay.
to be simple.
Oh, Schrodinger's razor. So now you're taking
open
you're
box
you're
may
taking
contain
the other
something.
vertical, right? You're saying
Yeah.
can we combine Occam and Schrodinger or
An
Occam
open
this
and
one's
box
not
may
Checkov?
contain
good.
the solution to problems. Also, it's very generalized and it could mean anything.
Which one?
Yeah, and it's not a
Schrodinger's
razor.
razor.
There's no cleavage in that entire sentence.
Well,
There's no cleavage. Yeah.
The simplest explanation is probably the correct one. Or sorry, Schrodinger's
How
razor.
do we
Sorry.
formulate
An
Schrodinger's
unopened
razor then?
box. An open box may contain the solution to your problems.
It's
I
not
don't know.
useful.
No.
I think like metaphorically, you could absolutely use that as like a self help. It's just like you don't know what's beyond the door, so
I
you
get
should
that.
open the door.
No.
That would be more Murphy or
He's right.
Checkov-y.
You think so?
Opie's right. That's badly constructed.
more-
We need to work on this.
All right. So what do we do? What do we do to this one? How do we fix it?
An unopened box may contain a razor.
An open box may contain
Oh.
a gun.
At least it works
No.
thematically. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
bit on the nose.
No, but
An open box.
Hmm.
it's because like
Well, forget about the box.
simplicity.
Because there's no box in Schrodinger's gun. So Schrodinger's razor doesn't need a box either. Schrodinger's razor is you don't know if it cuts or not until you use it.
I feel like this might just be a matter of to find out if the cat's dead, open the box.
Well, then that's not...
The simplest
way.
choice. No, the simplest choice of what's inside an unopened box is just two, which is full or empty.
So it's like
something's
this is
inside of
weird.
it. It contains something or it doesn't. You know.
So like the cat and the box are an item, but the Schrodinger's is the open-ended question, right? About is there yes or no, right? True or false. So
We
like
don't need a
how do you
box.
simplify true or false with the razor?
You can't know the simplest explanation.
Oh, why did you
I'm
say
trying
this,
to
Opie?
add-
I was happy before you mentioned that.
This one's the one outlier that's like actually terrible. You know.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't know that before you said it. I know it's terrible.
Like all of the other
Thanks,
ones,
Brad.
all the other ones have something. You know.
Right.
That doesn't
just
help
that
me at
one.
all.
That's a shame.
No, that's
Maybe
the
you
only
should
one I
open
can
a
see
box.
now.
It might solve your problem.
Oh, look, here's this razor, which may or may not cut. This Schrodinger's razor.
Oh, you don't know a
Whether or
razor
not-
is sharp until you shave?
Whether
You
or
don't
not
know if
it's a
the
razor
simplest
at all, depends
explanation
on
is
who's looking at
still
it.
the simplest.
Yeah, the simplest.
You don't know if the simplest explanation is the simplest.
April
How
said
about it's
the
like a razor,
simplest-
but like it's one of those razors that, so you know that they kind of look weird. They don't really know if they're razors or not.
the simplest
And
explanation.
Schrodinger's razor is like you don't know if it's a razor or not until somebody actually looks at it. Depending on who's looking at it, it's not a razor. It's just like an ornament or something.
April suggested the simplest explanation is or is not the correct one. That's a pretty good one. I like that one.
Yeah,
That's
I
actually,
like
that probably fixes it. Actually, yeah.
Yep. I'm
April,
okay now.
did April fix
Jesus
it?
Christ. Heart rate returning to normal. Rage subsiding.
Congratulations, April wins the day.
You can't know if it's the correct one. Like if we want to like slightly modify it, you can't know if it's the correct one.
Why would we slightly modify something that we're happy with?
Well, because it's consistent with the you can't know if or you can't
Stop
know
being
that.
consistent.
So it turns into you
Because we're
can't
humans.
know if the simplest answer is the correct
Yeah, that works.
one. Now Opie is satisfied, Barry's having existential crisis, and Dave's like, I'm gonna smoke more.
Yes, none of this would happen
Yep.
if Hazel was here, right? Hazel was here. None of this
Smoking
would have
fixes
happened.
everything.
Fixes it all.
Where would you put the grid if Hazel was here?
Yes. It would be right over
Same
here.
place. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, we're right over top of him. No, I would have put it down over here.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah.
That's
I
a perfect
probably would have
picture of
shrank it a little bit, but you guys might have had a hard
Hazel
time
would have
seeing
just
it.
cut through all this bullshit like with two
I
words.
actually also did this because I knew he wasn't going to be here, so we could
Ooh,
actually do
hilarious.
this if we wanted to, so we could
Oh,
make it bigger. Yeah.
oh.
I set up a whole. I got on here. I got early just so I set up an entirely different set just for this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a nice guy.
I think
We didn't use
you
it.
could probably see the trend in whoever constructed
think we
this.
did.
Like they probably got all 15 of those boxes, and then they got to Schrodinger's razor and went,
So there is
Maybe.
on the picture itself. It does have a name.
Ah, Jesus Christ!
Yeah,
No.
those are the people who.
Revex, Mr. Biox, Hail Snail, Van Ortatap.
Is this part of a philosophical paper, and those are the authors? Like,
I
that'd
have
be interesting.
no
I recognize
idea.
That's Hungarian.
I have no clue. All I got was the image, so I have no idea.
Can you stop moving it in and out? I feel like I'm looking at a chain link fence.
Yeah, there you go. Is that fine?
Or dazzle camouflage.
Is that better?
That's not helping
Dazzle
at all.
camouflage on Navy ships was hilarious.
Yeah,
I can
for
do
that
a
reason.
lot of
What she's doing
things.
there.
I can do a lot of things. All right, don't. I'm just.
Oh, do you better? I swear
You're
to God,
upside down.
no, don't fucking touch me.
All right, fine.
No, thank you. Do Opie, he won't care.
Opie, you want to be upside down? We can be
I
upside
could
down,
be, yeah.
bros.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be upside down, bros.
I like that you check for consent first. I approve of that.
Everything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Dude,
Perfect.
you fell out the top of the screen.
That was great. I applaud. I think that's going to be our show for
Oh,
today.
good.
That's a great thing to end
I like
on.
that.
Thank you so much for joining us today, everybody. Hopefully, Frustrator's thing went well. I hope you all enjoyed it.
Are we done?
Yeah, we've been live for almost an hour
Yeah,
already.
it was a little. Yeah, it's a short. Like, what else can we add to this grid? Like,
We can start adding other,
Oh.
like, laws and stuff.
I
if you
came up with
wanted.
an idea. What if we added all 8 into one?
Oh! You know what? That's a
Dude,
project
we've
for
got, like,
everybody to
5
do at home.
minutes. Why don't we just
Murphy's,
talk about Israel and
Occam's,
Palestine? We're gonna be
Schrodinger's,
like that about it.
Chekhov's, gun cat law.
Oh, God.
If anything was, is, can, should, or will be a box, a car, a cat, or a gun, then it will or will not, may or may not, did or did not, or
You cannot
And you
know
can't
if it
know
will
that.
or will not
And you
fly,
cannot know.
die, or
and
live.
travel in time.
But
All
it
right,
will.
go find everybody at their links down below. Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you for joining us. Barry, thank you for joining us. Uppy, thank you for joining us. We missed Frustrated
Bye.
today, but he's in the chat. Hi. Hopefully your school stuff went well. I've been Chesh. I'm the
Bullshit,
master
bullshit.
debater, host of Debate Hub. Like, share, subscribe, all that good shit. And catch these people over at their lovely links down below. Thank you so much. We're gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody.
You've probably had a question that you have thought about throughout your entire life, whether it be like, where am I going in life? What am I going to do with the rest of my life? That is a philosophical question, regardless if you're just wanting to know what kind of job you're going to do or whatever. It's still a philosophical question.
I'd say life is a choose your own adventure book. And what philosophy does is it does that thing where you say, you know, you can go to page 20 if this happens, or go to page 80 if this happens. And on page 80, it just says you die. You know, when you're playing those games and you just skip that bit and you don't go to page 80, you decide to go to page 20 after all. That's what philosophy can do for you.
One key trait about philosophy is that there's like unresolved arguments all the time that never can come to a consensus or agreement. It's always disagreements constantly. But that's actually part of a trait that's actually really good.
A little bit of philosophy makes you Deepak Chopra. Studying philosophy
Yeah.
makes you an alcoholic.
Yeah.
But the question here, Dave, is, what do you mean by a little?